A 5-year-old boy sits at a kitchen table in suburban Pennsylvania. He has never spoken a single word in his life. Doctors say there's nothing physically wrong with him. Therapists say he's choosing silence. But tonight, at 3:47 a.m., his parents wake to a sound they've never heard before. Their son is standing in the hallway, eyes wide open, screaming a name over and over. "Captain James Houston! Captain James Houston!" His voice is raw, desperate, terrified. And then, just as suddenly, he collapses. When his mother reaches him, she finds his hands covered in crude drawings, planes engulfed in flames, bodies falling from the sky, coordinates written in a handwriting that doesn't belong to a child. The boy looks up at her, tears streaming down his face, and whispers 4 words that will haunt her forever. I remember everything. Now, before we continue, if you're intrigued by the unexplainable, subscribe to our channel and tell us in the comments what city you're watching from. We want to know who's brave enough to follow this story to the end. 3 months earlier, the Carter family moved into a quiet neighborhood where nothing ever happens. Daniel Carter, the boy at the center of this impossible story, was born silent. Not a cry, not a whimper. The doctors ran every test imaginable. His vocal cords were intact. His brain showed no abnormalities, yet he never made a sound. His parents, Michael and Sarah Carter, learned to communicate with him through gestures and expressions. Daniel seemed content in his silent world, playing alone in his room, drawing pictures that his mother kept in a box beneath the stairs. But those drawings were different from what other children made. While other kids drew rainbows and stick figure families, Daniel drew machines, complex mechanical diagrams, aircraft carriers, fighter planes with serial numbers written in meticulous detail along the wings. Sarah told herself it was nothing. Maybe he'd seen something on television. Maybe he had an advanced spatial intelligence. But deep down, she felt something was wrong. The way Daniel stared at the sky whenever a plane passed overhead, the way he flinched at loud noises, covering his ears and trembling as if reliving something terrible. The way he refused to go near anything hot, backing away from candles, stoves, even warm bathwater, with a look of pure terror in his eyes. Michael dismissed it as childhood quirks, but Sarah knew better. Mothers always do. It started small. Objects moving in Daniel's room when no one was there, the mobile above his bed spinning violently despite the windows being closed, books falling from shelves in perfect sequence as if someone invisible was pulling them down one by one. Sarah would enter the room and find Daniel sitting cross-legged on the floor, staring at the wall, his finger tracing patterns in the air. When she asked him what he was doing, he would simply look at her with those enormous grey eyes and return to his silent ritual. One evening, Michael installed a baby monitor in Daniel's room, hoping to catch some clue to his son's behavior. That night, the audio picked up something impossible: breathing. Not Daniel's small, childlike breaths, but deep, labored breathing like someone struggling for air, and beneath it, faint and crackling like an old radio transmission, a voice. "Mayday, mayday, engine failure. Going down." Michael ripped the monitor from the wall the next morning and threw it in the garbage. He told Sarah it was defective, but she saw the fear in his eyes. Something was in that room with their son, or something was inside their son trying to claw its way out. The drawings became more disturbing. Detailed cockpit interiors, maps of the Pacific Ocean with X marks over specific coordinates, and faces. Dozens of faces, all men, all wearing military uniforms from another era. Sarah took the drawings to a local historian who specialized in World War II. The man went pale as he examined them. He pointed to one of the planes Daniel had drawn. "This is a Corsair F4U. This serial number, this plane went down in 1944 near Iwo Jima. How does your son know this?" Sarah had no answer. She gathered the drawings and left, her hands shaking so badly she could barely drive home. That night, Daniel walked into his parents' bedroom at midnight. He stood at the foot of their bed, perfectly still, staring at them. Sarah woke first, her heart hammering in her chest. "Daniel." He didn't respond. His eyes were open, But he wasn't seeing them. He was seeing something else, somewhere else. Michael turned on the bedside lamp, and that's when they saw it. Daniel's pajama shirt was soaked with sweat, and on his chest, angry red marks had appeared. Burns, shaped like shrapnel wounds, in the exact pattern of injuries sustained by pilots ejecting from burning aircraft. Sarah screamed. Michael grabbed Daniel, shaking him, shouting his name. The boy blinked once, twice, and then collapsed into his father's arms. The burns vanished as quickly as they had appeared, leaving only smooth, unmarked skin. The Carters took Daniel to 6 different doctors over the next 2 weeks. Dermatologists, psychologists, neurologists. No one could explain the marks. No one could explain the drawings. And no one could explain why a 5-year-old mute boy had begun writing in his sleep. Sarah found the first note tucked under his pillow, written in shaky but deliberate handwriting. "My name is Captain James Houston. I was shot down on March 3rd, 1945. I burned alive. I am still burning." Sarah's blood turned to ice. She researched the name. Captain James Houston, United States Navy, fighter pilot, killed in action during the Battle of Iwo Jima when his plane was struck by enemy fire and crashed into the Pacific Ocean. His body was never recovered. He was 21 years old. But that wasn't the most disturbing part. Sarah kept reading. Captain Houston's plane wasn't shot down by the enemy. According to declassified military reports, his aircraft suffered a catastrophic engine failure moments after takeoff. Mechanical malfunction, tragic accident, case closed. Except one witness, a fellow pilot named Lieutenant Robert Dawson, gave a different account. He claimed he saw another American plane tailing Houston's aircraft. He claimed he saw tracer fire. He claimed James Houston was murdered by someone in his own squadron. The official report dismissed Dawson's testimony as trauma-induced delusion. Dawson was dishonorably discharged 3 months later for insubordination and psychological instability. He died in 1998, insisting until his last breath that James Houston was betrayed. Sarah sat at her kitchen table, the historical documents spread before her, and felt the walls of reality crumbling around her. Her son, who had never spoken, was writing the memories of a dead man. A man who died 30 years before Daniel was even born. She looked up at the ceiling, toward Daniel's room, and heard the faint sound of scratching, pencil on paper. She climbed the stairs slowly, each step heavier than the last. Daniel's door was cracked open. Inside, her son sat on the floor, surrounded by drawings. But these were different. These were names, dozens of names, written over and over in obsessive repetition. And at the center of the pile, one name circled in red so many times the paper had torn. Lieutenant Robert Dawson. Sarah's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Your son remembers, and so do I. We need to talk." She looked at Daniel. He was staring directly at her now, fully awake, fully present, and for the first time in his life, he smiled. Sarah Carter doesn't sleep anymore. Every time she closes her eyes, she sees her son standing in the hallway, whispering names of dead men. Every time she tries to convince herself this is a psychological episode, something impossible happens. Last night, Daniel walked into the kitchen, picked up a pencil, and drew a perfect schematic of a 1940s aircraft carrier, labeling every deck, every compartment, every gun turret with technical precision no 5-year-old should possess. When Sarah tried to take the pencil away, Daniel looked at her with eyes that didn't belong to a child and said, "They left me in the water. I watched them fly away." His voice was calm, too calm, like he'd said those words 1,000 times before. Michael refuses to believe it. He's a civil engineer, a man who trusts blueprints and equations, not ghost stories. He insists Daniel has been watching documentaries, reading books they didn't know about, absorbing information subconsciously. But Sarah knows better. She's seen the way Daniel flinches when a car backfires, the way he covers his ears and ducks as if expecting enemy fire, the way he refuses to go near the bathtub, terrified of water deeper than a few inches. He's drowning, she tells Michael one morning. He's drowning over and over again in his sleep. Michael slams his coffee mug down. He's 5 years old, Sarah. He has an overactive imagination, that's all. But his voice cracks when he says it, because he knows she's right. The anonymous text message haunts Sarah. She hasn't responded. She doesn't know if she should, but curiosity eats at her like acid. 2 days after receiving it, she finally replies, "Who are you?" The response comes immediately. "I was there when he died. I know what happened. Meet me at Riverside Park tomorrow at noon. Come alone." Sarah's hands tremble. This is insane. This is dangerous. But if there's even a chance someone can explain what's happening to her son, she has to try. She tells Michael she's going grocery shopping. She drives to Riverside Park, her heart pounding so hard she can barely breathe. The park is empty, except for one man sitting on a bench near the water. He's old, maybe 70, with weathered skin and eyes that have seen too much. Sarah approaches slowly. The man looks up and smiles, but there's no warmth in it. "You're Sarah Carter," he says. It's not a question. She nods. "And you're—" The man extends a hand. "My name is Thomas Riley. I was a radio operator on the USS Natoma Bay, the same carrier James Houston flew from." Sarah's blood runs cold. She sits down, her legs suddenly unable to hold her weight. "How do you know about my son?" Thomas pulls a folded photograph from his jacket and hands it to her. It's a black and white image of a young pilot standing in front of a Corsair fighter plane. The resemblance is impossible to ignore. The shape of the face, the set of the eyes. It's Daniel, or someone who could be Daniel's twin. "That's Captain James Houston," Thomas says quietly, "taken 2 days before he died. I've spent 60 years trying to forget that face, and then I saw your son on the local news 3 weeks ago. Some story about a mute child genius who draws military aircraft. The moment I saw him, I knew." Sarah's throat tightens. "Knew what?" Thomas leans closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "That James Houston came back. Reincarnation isn't just some mystical idea, Mrs. Carter. It's real, and your son is living proof." Sarah wants to laugh. She wants to call this man insane and walk away. But she can't, because deep down, she's known this truth since the night Daniel first screamed that name. Thomas tells her everything. How James Houston was one of the best pilots in the squadron. How he was fearless, reckless, always volunteering for the most dangerous missions. How the other pilots admired him, except for one, Lieutenant Robert Dawson. Dawson hated him, Thomas says. Jealousy. Houston got all the commendations, all the glory. Dawson was a good pilot, but he was invisible next to Houston. The resentment ate him alive. Sarah's pulse quickens. "What are you saying?" Thomas looks out at the water, his jaw clenched. "I'm saying Robert Dawson didn't just witness Houston's death, he caused it. I was monitoring the radio that day. I heard everything. Dawson was flying behind Houston. I heard him say, clear as day, 'This is for stealing my life.' And then I heard gunfire. By the time I reported it, Command had already written it off as engine failure. They didn't want a scandal. They didn't want to admit an American pilot had murdered another American pilot." Sarah feels like she's falling. "Did anyone believe you?" Thomas shakes his head. "Dawson had friends in high places. My report disappeared. I was reassigned to a desk job and told to keep my mouth shut. Dawson got a promotion. He went on to have a long, successful military career. He retired with honors. And James Houston's family never knew the truth." Sarah's mind races. Is Dawson still alive? Thomas's expression darkens. "Oh, he's alive. 87 years old, living in a luxury retirement home in Virginia, decorated war hero, beloved grandfather. And your son, somehow, remembers what he did." Sarah drives home in a daze. She finds Daniel in his room, sitting on the floor, staring at a blank piece of paper. She kneels beside him. "Daniel, I need you to tell me something. Do you remember a man named Robert Dawson?" Daniel's entire body goes rigid, his eyes widen, his breathing becomes shallow and rapid. And then, in a voice that doesn't sound like his own, he whispers, "He's the one who killed me." Sarah pulls him into her arms, tears streaming down her face. "I know, baby. I know." Daniel looks up at her, his small face filled with a grief no child should carry. He's still out there, Mom, and he knows I'm back. That night, Sarah receives another message. This time, it's not from Thomas Riley. The number is different. The message is short. Stop digging. Some secrets should stay buried. Sarah's blood turns to ice. She shows Michael, who finally believes her. They install security cameras around the house. They keep Daniel home from preschool. They lock every door and window. But it doesn't matter, because the next morning, Sarah finds a package on their doorstep. No return address, no postage. Just a small cardboard box wrapped in brown paper. Inside is a single item, a military dog tag, engraved with the name Captain James Houston. Michael calls the police. They file a report, but there's nothing they can do. No crime has been committed. No threats have been made. Just a dog tag that shouldn't exist, because James Houston's tags were lost when his plane went down. Sarah holds the cold metal in her hand and feels the weight of something far heavier than steel. Someone is watching them, someone knows, and whoever it is, they want the Carters to be afraid. That night, Daniel has the worst episode yet. He wakes up screaming, clawing at his chest, shouting that he's on fire. Michael and Sarah rush to his room and find him thrashing on the bed, his skin unmarked but his terror absolute. "It's burning!" he screams. "The cockpit's burning! I can't get out! I can't!" Sarah grabs his face, forcing him to look at her. "Daniel, you're not there! You're home!" "You're safe." But Daniel shakes his head, tears streaming down his face. "He's coming, Mom. He knows where we are, and he's going to finish what he started." The Carters don't talk about normal things anymore. No discussions about school or weekend plans. Every conversation circles back to the same impossible question. How do you protect your child from a murderer who should have died decades ago? Michael spends hours on his laptop, researching reincarnation, past life memories, children who remember previous identities. The cases are rare but documented. A boy in India who remembered being a shopkeeper and led his new family to his old home. A girl in Turkey who recalled dying in childbirth and identified her previous husband by name. But none of those cases involved murder. None involved a killer still walking free. Daniel, meanwhile, has stopped drawing. He sits in his room, silent again, staring at the walls as if watching scenes no one else can see. Sarah asks him what he's thinking about, but he doesn't answer. The brief window of speech has closed. He's retreated back into himself, and Sarah doesn't know if that's better or worse. Thomas Riley calls Sarah 3 days after their meeting in the park. His voice is urgent, strained. "We need to talk again. I found something." They meet at a diner on the outskirts of town. Thomas slides a manila folder across the table. Inside are photocopied documents, yellowed with age, military records, flight logs, incident reports, and photographs. Sarah's hands shake as she flips through them. "What am I looking at?" Thomas taps one of the pages. "Robert Dawson's service record. Look at the dates." Sarah scans the document. Dawson was deployed to the Pacific Theater in 1943, promoted to lieutenant in 1944, received a Distinguished Flying Cross in 1945, just 2 months after James Houston died. "He was rewarded," Thomas says bitterly. "He killed a fellow pilot and got a medal for it." But that's not the most disturbing part. Thomas pulls out another document, this one more recent, a printout from a genealogy website. Dawson has 3 children, 8 grandchildren, and 4 great-grandchildren. He's written a memoir. He gives speeches at Veterans Day events. He's a celebrity in military circles. Sarah's stomach turns. How is this possible? How did no one ever investigate? Thomas's expression hardens. Because the only witness was me, and I was silenced, because the military protects its own, because James Houston's family had no body to bury, no closure, no reason to ask questions. He leans forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. "But your son remembers. And if he can prove what happened, if he can remember details only James Houston would know, we can expose the truth." Sarah's mind reels. "You want me to put my 5-year-old son on trial to prove he's the reincarnation of a murdered pilot?" Thomas doesn't flinch. I want justice. And I think James Houston does too. That's why he came back. That's why he found you. Sarah shakes her head. This is insane. Even if Daniel remembers everything, who's going to believe him? A mute child who draws planes and has nightmares? Thomas slides one more item across the table. A business card. Dr. Elena Vasquez, Ph.D. Regression therapy specialist. She works with children who have past life memories. She's testified in court cases, been featured in documentaries. If anyone can help Daniel unlock the full truth, it's her. Sarah takes the card but doesn't commit. She goes home and finds Michael in Daniel's room, sitting on the floor beside their son. They're looking at a photo album. Old family pictures. Michael points to a photograph of his grandfather, who served in World War II. Your great-grandpa fought in the war too, Michael says softly. Daniel stares at the photo, his expression unreadable. Then slowly he reaches out and touches the image. His finger traces the uniform, the insignia, the medals, and then he speaks. I knew him. Michael freezes. What? Daniel looks up, his grey eyes clear and focused. I knew him. His name was Sergeant Thomas Keller. He was on Iwo Jima. I flew cover for his unit. Michael's face goes white. He grabs the photo, checking the name written on the back. Sergeant Thomas Keller, his grandfather, a man who died in 1987 when Michael was 12 years old. Sarah walks in and sees the look on Michael's face. What happened? Michael can't speak. He just points at the photo, then at Daniel. Sarah kneels down. Daniel, how do you know this man? Daniel's voice is small but certain. I saw him on the ground. He waved at me when I flew over. He had a crooked smile. He always had a crooked smile. Michael's breath comes in ragged gasps. His grandfather did have a crooked smile, from a childhood accident that left a scar on his lip. It's not in the photo. It's not something anyone would know unless they'd seen him in person. Sarah and Michael exchange a look. There's no more denying it. Their son is not just imagining things. He's not just traumatized or confused. He is remembering, truly, impossibly, remembering a life that wasn't his. That night, Sarah calls Dr. Elena Vasquez. The woman's voice is calm, professional, unsurprised by anything Sarah tells her. I've worked with dozens of cases like this, Dr. Vasquez says. Children who remember past lives often carry trauma from those lives. The memories can be fragmented, overwhelming, but with the right techniques, we can help Daniel process them safely. Sarah asks the question she's terrified to hear the answer to. Can you prove it's real? Can you prove he's telling the truth? There's a pause. Proof is a complicated word, Mrs. Carter, but I can help you gather evidence, verifiable details. Facts Daniel couldn't possibly know. And yes, I've had cases where the information was so accurate, so specific, that it held up under legal scrutiny. Dr. Vasquez agrees to meet with Daniel the following week. In the meantime, Sarah and Michael try to keep life as normal as possible. But normal doesn't exist anymore. Daniel starts sleepwalking. They find him standing in the backyard at 2 a.m., staring at the sky, arms outstretched as if reaching for something. When they bring him back inside, he's ice cold, his lips blue, but he shows no signs of discomfort. I was flying, he murmurs. I was finally flying again. Sarah wraps him in blankets, holds him until his body temperature returns to normal, and wonders how much longer her son can survive being two people at once. The anonymous messages continue. You're making a mistake. Let the past die. Your son is in danger. Michael wants to go to the FBI. Sarah wants to hire private security, but they're paralyzed by fear and confusion. And then, 5 days before Daniel's appointment with Dr. Vasquez, something happens that changes everything. Sarah receives a certified letter, no return address. Inside is a single page typed on an old-fashioned typewriter. The message is short. I know what your son is. I know what he remembers. And I know how to make him stop. If you value his life, you'll keep silent. This is your only warning. Signed, a friend. Sarah's hands shake so badly, she drops the letter. Michael picks it up, reads it, and his face goes from pale to red with rage. That's it. We're going to the police. This is a direct threat. But before they can move, Daniel walks into the room. He picks up the letter, reads it, and his expression doesn't change. He looks at his mother with ancient, weary eyes and says, "It's him, Robert Dawson. He's trying to scare us." Sarah's voice breaks. "How do you know?" Daniel's answer is simple, devastating. "Because I remember. He sent letters to my family after I died. Condolence letters, saying what a great pilot I was, how sorry he was. He's a liar, and he's a coward." Michael crouches down, eye level with his son. "Daniel, if you remember him, do you know where he is?" Daniel nods slowly. "Virginia. He lives near the water. He has a big house with a flag outside, and every night he looks at a picture of me and smiles. Because he thinks he got away with it." Sarah's heart stops. "How could you possibly know that?" Daniel's gaze is steady, unflinching. "Because I've been watching him, Mom. In my dreams. I've been there, and he knows I'm coming." Dr. Elena Vasquez's office is not what Sarah expected. No sterile white walls or clinical furniture. Instead, it's warm, filled with soft lighting, comfortable chairs, and shelves lined with books on consciousness, memory, and the human soul. Dr. Vasquez herself is in her mid-50s, with kind eyes and a calm presence that immediately puts Sarah at ease. "Thank you for bringing Daniel," she says, shaking both parents' hands. "I know this isn't easy." Michael is tense, skeptical. "So what exactly do you do?" "Hypnosis." Dr. Vasquez smiles gently. "Not quite. I use a technique called guided regression. I help children access memories that are buried deep in their subconscious. It's non-invasive, completely safe, and we stop immediately if Daniel shows any sign of distress." Daniel sits on a cushioned chair, his legs swinging, his expression neutral. Dr. Vasquez kneels in front of him. "Hi, Daniel. My name is Elena. I'm here to help you remember things. Not scary things, just things that are stuck in your head and need to come out. Does that sound okay?" Daniel looks at his mother. Sarah nods encouragingly. Daniel turns back to Dr. Vasquez and nods once. The session begins. Dr. Vasquez speaks in a low, soothing voice, guiding Daniel into a relaxed state. She asks him to close his eyes, to breathe deeply, to imagine he's somewhere safe. "Now, Daniel, I want you to think about the pictures you draw. The airplanes. Can you see them?" Daniel's breathing slows. "Yes." His voice is distant, dreamy. "What do you see, Doctor?" Vasquez asks. "I see the deck, the carrier, the smell of fuel and oil, the sound of engines." "Good. You're doing great. Now can you tell me your name?" A long pause. And then, in a voice that is not Daniel's, not a child's voice, he says, "Captain James Houston, service number 4387621. Sarah grips Michael's hand so tightly her knuckles turn white. Dr. Vasquez remains calm, writing notes. "Captain Houston, can you tell me where you are?" "USS Natoma Bay, Pacific Theater, March 1945. What's happening?" Daniel's face twitches. His hands clench into fists. "Mission briefing. We're launching at dawn. Target is enemy positions on Iwo Jima. I'm flying Corsair F4U, tail number 269. Dr. Vasquez glances at Sarah, then back at Daniel. "What happens next?" Daniel's breathing quickens. "Takeoff. Standard formation. Dawson is behind me, always behind me. Watching." His voice hardens. "I don't trust him, but I have orders." The room is silent except for Daniel's voice. "Doctor," Vasquez leans closer. "Why don't you trust Dawson?" "Because he hates me. He thinks I stole his glory. He thinks I'm the reason he's nothing." Daniel's eyes are still closed, but tears begin to stream down his face. We're in the air, climbing to altitude. Everything's fine. And then the engine sputters. I check the instruments. Oil pressure dropping, temperature spiking. Something's wrong. His voice rises in panic. I call it in. Mayday. Engine failure. I need to turn back. And then I hear it. Gunfire. I look back and see Dawson's plane. He's firing at me. He's shooting at me. Sarah's hand flies to her mouth. Michael is frozen, his face ashen. Dr. Vasquez keeps her voice steady. "What do you do?" "I try to evade. I dive. But it's too late. My engine explodes, fire everywhere. I can't see, I can't breathe. The cockpit is burning, I'm burning. I pull the eject lever, but it's jammed. I'm trapped. The plane is spiraling down. I hit the water. The impact breaks my ribs. I'm sinking. The plane is dragging me under. I can't get out. I can't. Daniel's body convulses. Dr. Vasquez immediately snaps her fingers. Daniel, come back. You're safe. You're not there anymore. Come back to this room. Daniel's eyes fly open. He gasps for air, his chest heaving. Sarah rushes to him, pulling him into her arms. He's shaking violently, his skin cold and clammy. Dr. Vasquez gives them space, then quietly says, "That was incredibly brave, Daniel. You did so well." Michael is pacing, running his hands through his hair. "This is real. This is actually real." Dr. Vasquez nods. The level of detail Daniel provided, the specificity of the serial numbers, the description of the aircraft and the ship, these are not things a 5-year-old could fabricate. I've recorded everything. With your permission, I'd like to verify the information. Sarah nods numbly. Do whatever you need to do. Over the next 3 days, Dr. Vasquez works with a military historian to cross-reference Daniel's statements. Every single detail checks out. The USS Natoma Bay was stationed in the Pacific in March 1945. Captain James Houston was assigned to the ship. His plane, a Corsair F-4U with tail number 269, was reported lost on March 3, 1945. The official cause, engine failure. But now, for the first time, there's a witness testimony, fragmented and impossible as it is, claiming something different. Dr. Vasquez calls the Carters back to her office. I've compiled a full report. This is enough to reopen a historical investigation. But I need to warn you, if you pursue this, you're going to face enormous resistance. The military doesn't like admitting mistakes, especially ones involving murder and cover-ups. Michael is resolute. We have to do it. If not for Daniel, then for James Houston. He deserves justice. Sarah agrees. What do we do next? Dr. Vasquez hands them a folder. There's a journalist I know. She specializes in cases like this. Unsolved mysteries, historical injustices. If anyone can get this story out, it's her. The journalist's name is Rachel Kincaid. She's won awards for investigative reporting, and she's fearless. When Sarah calls her, Rachel listens to the entire story without interrupting. Then she says, "I'm in. This is the kind of story that changes everything, but I need one thing from you." "What?" Sarah asks. "Access to Daniel. I need to interview him, film him, document his memories. This has to be airtight." The Carters agree. Rachel arrives at their home 2 days later with a small crew. She's professional, respectful, and gentle with Daniel. She asks him questions on camera. "Where did you serve? What was your squadron? Who was your commanding officer?" Daniel answers every question with calm precision. USS Natoma Bay, Squadron 301, Commander Richard Hayes. Rachel's team verifies every answer in real time. It's all correct. Rachel's eyes widen as she realizes what she's witnessing. "This is going to blow up," she whispers to Sarah. "Are you ready for that?" Sarah isn't sure. But it's too late to turn back now. The story airs on a major news network 3 weeks later. 5-year-old boy claims he was murdered in World War II. The reaction is immediate and explosive. Some people believe it. Others call it a hoax. The military releases a statement saying they have no reason to revisit the case. But the story doesn't die. It spreads across social media, news outlets, podcasts. Everyone has an opinion. And in Virginia, an 87-year-old man watches the broadcast from his retirement home, his hands trembling with rage. Robert Dawson knows his time is running out. He spent 70 years hiding the truth, but now it's clawing its way back from the grave. He picks up the phone and makes a call. "I need this problem handled. I don't care how. Just make it stop." On the other end of the line, a voice responds. "Understood." The Carters are being watched. They don't know it yet, but soon they will. Because Robert Dawson is not just a decorated war hero. He has connections, he has resources, and he has everything to lose. Daniel stands at his bedroom window, staring out at the street. He sees the black car parked 3 houses down, engine running, windows tinted. He knows who sent it, and he knows what's coming. He turns to his mother, who has just walked into the room, and says calmly, "Mum, we need to leave. Right now. The Carters pack in 20 minutes. Clothes, documents, Daniel's drawings, and the dog tag that appeared on their doorstep." Michael loads the car while Sarah calls Thomas Riley. "We're in danger. We need somewhere safe to go." Thomas doesn't hesitate. "I have a cabin upstate. Remote. No one knows about it. I'll text you the address." They drive through the night, checking the rearview mirror every few seconds. No one follows them, but the sense of being hunted never fades. Daniel sits in the back seat, staring out the window, silent as ever. Sarah wonders how much a 5-year-old mind can hold before it breaks under the weight of 2 lifetimes. When they arrive at the cabin, it's nearly dawn. Thomas is already there, a fire crackling in the hearth. He looks older, more tired than before. "You did the right thing," he says. Dawson is scared, and scared men are dangerous. Rachel Kincaid calls Sarah that afternoon. "You need to see this." She sends a video link. It's a press conference. Robert Dawson sitting in a wheelchair, surrounded by family, looking frail and sympathetic. A lawyer stands beside him. "Mr. Dawson has been made aware of the recent allegations regarding events from 1945. These claims are not only false, but deeply hurtful to a man who served his country with honor. Mr. Dawson categorically denies any wrongdoing and is considering legal action against those spreading these malicious lies." The camera zooms in on Dawson's face. He looks directly into the lens, and for just a moment, Sarah sees it. The cold, calculating eyes of a man who has gotten away with murder for 70 years and intends to keep it that way. But Rachel isn't done. "I've been digging into Dawson's past. There's something you need to know. After the war, 3 men from his squadron died under suspicious circumstances. 1 in a car accident, 1 in a house fire, 1 from a so-called accidental overdose. All 3 had filed informal complaints about Dawson's behavior during the war. All 3 died within 5 years of returning home." Sarah's blood runs cold. "You're saying Dawson killed them too?" Rachel's voice is grim. "I'm saying he's a man who eliminates threats, and right now your son is the biggest threat he's ever faced." Michael overhears the conversation. His face hardens. "Then we go public. We release everything, every document, every recording, every piece of evidence. We make it impossible for him to hide." Thomas shakes his head. "It won't be enough. You need a confession. You need Dawson to admit what he did." Sarah's voice is bitter. "How are we supposed to get that? He's not going to just confess after 70 years. Daniel, who has been sitting quietly by the fire, speaks up. "I can make him." Everyone turns to look at him. Michael's voice is sharp. "Absolutely not. You're not going anywhere near that man." Daniel stands, his small frame somehow commanding. "He killed me once. He can't kill me again. I'm not afraid of him." Sarah kneels in front of her son, tears in her eyes. "Daniel, you're 5 years old. You shouldn't have to carry this." Daniel's expression is ancient, weary, and unbearably sad. "I know, Mom, but I'm not just 5. And this isn't just about me. It's about every person he hurt, every life he destroyed. Someone has to stop him. The plan is insane, reckless, but it's the only one they have." Rachel arranges a televised interview. Robert Dawson and the boy who remembers his murder. Dawson's lawyers initially refuse, but Rachel baits him. "Are you afraid of a 5-year-old child?" Dawson's ego won't allow that. He agrees to the interview, confident he can discredit a traumatized boy on live television. The interview is scheduled for 3 days later. The location, a neutral studio in New York. Security will be present. Everything will be recorded. Dr. Vasquez coaches Daniel, preparing him for the confrontation. "He's going to try to intimidate you. He's going to lie, but you just tell the truth. That's all you have to do." Daniel nods. "I know who he is, and he knows who I am. That's all that matters." The day of the interview arrives. The studio is packed. Cameras everywhere. Dawson sits on one side of the stage, flanked by lawyers, looking every bit the decorated veteran. Fragile, sympathetic, wronged. Daniel sits on the other side, small and alone, except for Sarah and Michael in the front row. Rachel moderates. She starts with softballs, background on Dawson's service, his accolades, his family. Dawson is charming, eloquent. He talks about the horrors of war, the bonds between soldiers, the tragedy of losing comrades. And then Rachel turns to Daniel. "Daniel, can you tell us what you remember about Captain James Houston?" Daniel's voice is clear, steady. "I remember everything." Dawson's smile falters. "I remember the smell of the fuel, the sound of the engines, the way the sun looked over the ocean. I remember my last mission, and I remember the man who shot me down." The room goes silent. Dawson's lawyer leans forward. "This is absurd. My client was not even in the air that day." Daniel doesn't blink. "Yes, you were. You flew plane number 284. You had a dent on the left wing from a hard landing the week before. You always chewed gum before takeoff. Spearmint. And you told me the night before that you were tired of living in my shadow." Dawson's face goes white. Rachel presses. "Mr. Dawson, can you confirm any of those details?" Dawson's mouth opens, but no sound comes out. His lawyer tries to intervene, but Daniel isn't finished. "You followed me on takeoff. You waited until we were over open water. And then you fired 6 rounds into my engine. You watched me go down. You watched me burn. And you flew back to the carrier and lied." Dawson's composure cracks. "That's not... I never..." Daniel stands up. "You sent letters to my family. You told them I was a hero. You cried at my memorial. And every night since you've looked at my picture and convinced yourself you did the right thing." Dawson's voice rises, shaking. "You don't know what you're talking about. You're a child. You're sick. This is..." Daniel's voice cuts through the room like a blade. "I know the coordinates where my plane sank. 24.7856 degrees north, 141.3242 degrees east. I know because I watched the water close over my head. If you send divers, you'll find my plane. You'll find the bullet holes. You'll find the truth." The room erupts. Reporters shouting, cameras flashing, Dawson's lawyers trying to pull him off stage. But Dawson is frozen, staring at Daniel with wide, terrified eyes. And then, in a moment that will be replayed millions of times, Dawson breaks. "I didn't want to," he whispers. The room goes silent. "I didn't want to, but he was everything I wasn't. Everyone loved him, everyone. And I was nothing. I just wanted him gone. I just wanted..." His voice trails off as he realizes what he's just said. His lawyers are screaming. Rachel is signaling her crew to keep recording. Dawson looks at Daniel, and for the first time in 70 years, he sees not a rival, not a threat, but the man he murdered. "I'm sorry," Dawson whispers. "I'm so sorry." Daniel's expression doesn't change. Too late. The aftermath is a whirlwind. Dawson is arrested. The military launches a formal investigation. Divers are sent to the coordinates Daniel provided. They find the wreckage of Corsair F4U, tail number 269. They find bullet holes in the engine casing. Ballistics confirm they were fired from a standard-issue American aircraft gun. The case is reopened. Dawson's medals are revoked. His memoir is pulled from shelves. He dies 6 months later in a federal detention facility, awaiting trial. Some say it was a heart attack. Others say it was guilt. Daniel stops having nightmares. The burns on his chest never return. He starts speaking more, laughing more, playing like a normal child. But sometimes Sarah catches him staring at the sky, and she knows he's remembering. Dr. Vasquez visits them one last time. "How is he?" she asks. Sarah smiles, though her eyes are sad. "He's healing. Both of them are." Thomas Riley publishes a book about the case. It becomes a bestseller. He donates all proceeds to veterans' mental health organizations. He visits Daniel once a year, and they sit together in silence, 2 men who carry the weight of war in different ways. Rachel Kincaid wins a Pulitzer Prize for her reporting. She stays in touch with the Carters, checking in, making sure they're safe. The story becomes legend. The boy who remembered, the pilot who came back, the murderer who finally faced justice. Daniel grows up. He never forgets, but he learns to live with the memories, to integrate them into who he is. On his 18th birthday, he enlists in the Navy. He becomes a pilot. He flies over the Pacific Ocean, and for the first time in 2 lifetimes, he feels peace. And somewhere, in the vast expanse between life and death, Captain James Houston finally rests. His truth told, his death avenged, his soul, at last, free.